Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are we doing? Everybody watching us, the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday. It's been a great week right around here in the Tuscaloosa, West Alabama area right here on BamaCentral.com. You've been watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We've had a lot of fun talking to Miles Upchurch, future Alabama baseball player, on Wednesday. We broke down the SEC championship on Monday. We're getting set for a big basketball weekend ahead for Alabama. Alabama playing Purdue on Saturday. We're going to keep things rolling with SEC, right here. It's going to be Heisman Trophy finalist. The Heisman Trophy is going to be awarded on Saturday, so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're going to talk the transfer portal opened up a little bit on Monday, and Alabama's seen a little bit of activity despite making the college football playoffs. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking about all kinds of things Alabama-related, college football-related, sports-related. We're going to do that with Jalen Prince. Jalen Prince, independent sports media man, where you can hear him on Two Dudes with Sports News on a podcast. You've heard him on Tide 100.9 for the last 2.5 years, doing all kinds of things right here in Tuscaloosa. He's got all kinds of high school coverage as well. Follow him on the Twitter machine at ThePrinceBoy52. Jalen, what's good, man? Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Hope your Friday is going well.
Yeah, it's going well. I just got off of work and off my workout, so just pulling up to the house. But everything's been going good. It's definitely a good time to be in Tuscaloosa, and it's a really good time to be a Bama fan.
Absolutely. You got your workout on, you got your pump, so you're feeling ready to talk some sports now that you got all the anxiety and energy and the strength has now been worked out of you.
Yeah, I'm always ready. Even when I'm tired, when I'm sick, when I ain't well, when I'm happy and I'm sad, I'm always gonna be ready to talk sports. That's never gonna be a debate. I stay ready, so you never have to get ready.
Well, I've seen you all throughout the high school season on high school sidelines, covering high school sports around the area. Why don't we start with tonight's game? Tonight in Bryant-Denny Stadium, Saraland and Clay Chalkville will compete for the 6A state championship. It's the last state championship of the weekend. The AHSAA has been partying in Bryant-Denny Stadium all week long. We saw Gulf Shores win a state championship last night. We saw Thompson lose to Clay Chalkville. 2 Alabama commits with Clay Chalkville on Wednesday night. But we're going to watch a pretty fun game tonight. I don't know if you'll be there. I'm going to try to get in there. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether I'll be there tonight. We've got Ryan Williams and Saraland, future Alabama wide receiver, class of 2025, is taking on Jalen Mbakwe and Clay Chalkville. Yeah, I said the wrong thing. It was Central Phoenix City beating Thompson, not Clay Chalkville. Excuse me. Isaiah Fega and Red Morgan of Central Phoenix City on Wednesday night beating Thompson. So tonight is Saraland and Clay Chalkville with Jalen Mbakwe. We're not going to see Jalen Mbakwe covering Ryan Williams too much because he plays quarterback for Clay Chalkville. So what do you think about these two teams? Obviously, best two teams in 6A. Clay Chalkville has beaten Thompson this year, and really more specifically to us and to our show, talking about Ryan Williams and Jalen Mbakwe. Ryan Williams, rumors about him reclassifying into the 2024 class. Both those guys going to be pretty big-time studs once they come to Tuscaloosa.
Both of them are going to be really good studs, but to really hunker down on this game, I got to go in Mbakwe squad because I do remember the last time that these two teams had played, or like the last time I saw Mbakwe play, especially at quarterback, and he's been unstoppable, very explosive, been able to throw the ball well, but there's a reason why he was deemed such a highly rated athlete. His ability both with speed, power, his vision, and the most underrated thing about him is his IQ. He knows the game of football. He knows how to exploit weaknesses against his opponent. So when I look at this matchup tonight, as much as I love Ryan Williams and I know he's going to do tremendous things when he get down to T-Town, but I got to go Mbakwe in this squad because you got to figure out how to stop Mbakwe. And refresh my memory. What's his first name again?
Jalen Mbakwe.
Oh, and I said his name Jalen. Now, is it spelled the same way as mine?
I think it's Jylen, so I don't think it's the same.
Well, here's the thing that most people got to understand. In the state of Alabama or in the state or in the South in general, and also in Philadelphia as well, you can never go wrong with a Jalen in your life.
Alabama football has seen that twice now over the last 8 years, and we'll talk about Jalen Milroe here in just a little bit. I will look forward to talk about the Heisman Trophy finalist with you in just a bit. Last little thing on high school recruiting as kind of the culmination of AHSAA season. You've watched Cam Coleman with Clay Chalkville. You've watched Ryan Williams with Saraland. You've watched Perry Thompson with Foley. Perry Thompson with Foley. You've got Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson are both committed to Auburn. Ryan Williams committed to Alabama. Ryan Williams class of 2025. For those who haven't really been following, Ryan Williams like a week or so ago put out an Instagram counting down to, I believe, it might have been December 9th. It's coming up in the next day or so. Put out a countdown saying he's going to make an announcement. And people have been debating whether Ryan Williams is reclassifying to the 2024 class or whether his announcement is that he's going to flip to the Auburn Tigers. So subsequently, as my dog gets a little into my notes here, subsequently with the Ryan Williams topic, this is a kind of a three-parter. I want you to address all three guys because Perry Thompson right now has been doing the am I going to flip from Auburn back to Alabama? The social media tea leaves are kind of tea-leaving, if you will. You don't know if that really is going to matter or what or not, but it's teasing right now. And Cam Coleman doing the same thing. So Auburn right now feels great about their 2024 wide receivers with Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson. They're going to feel even better if they can flip Ryan Williams and reclassify him. What's the case? Where do all three of these wide receivers end up going?
Well, given that it is the wide receiver position and history shows there are more divas and like high personalities as a receiver than there's ever been. Now you add the NIL deal. Those are going to be part of the consideration as far as recruiting. That's part of recruiting. You can argue with it, you can debate it, you can like it, you can hate it, but that's the life of college football now. So when you take those things into an account, let's start with Ryan Williams. Explosive, already committed to Bama. Could he flip? Possibly. Recruiting is so tricky because you're trying to think for another person, or you're trying to get in the mind of another person, and you really don't know. Only they know. Even their family think they know. They don't really know because you don't know when their mind's going to change. You don't know what's going to influence them. You're like they're looking at every bit of detail. For me personally, I think Ryan Williams is going to stay. I think he's going to come to Alabama, and I think he'll make a good impact. I think the tricky thing is a lot of these players, they're going to wait and see the teams that they committed for. They're going to wait and see to figure out who's coming back and who's going to be dipping. That leads me over to the other two guys that they committed to Auburn. We already know Auburn weapon-wise, they don't have a lot. And Hugh Freeze just got there, and he's trying to get his guys over there to play at Jordan-Hare. So I can also see those guys staying there as well because that's also like a wide open door for them to really get an opportunity to play immediately. Rather, when you come to Alabama, I'm not saying like they're not going to compete at Auburn, but like when you come to Alabama, you got to compete. So we're going to find out in the next couple of days, couple of weeks, because we know National Signing Day is on its way there. That's one of my most busiest times. We're going to find out what a lot of these guys, their mindset are going to be based on their decisions, their responses to it. And us as reporters, we're going to have a huge opportunity to be able to ask them questions. So that's kind of how I feel about it, because we don't know how they're thinking and their process, because every process is different. We're just going to have to wait and see. But those would be my guesses.
Well, let's flip because you just talked about transitions and how that's going to play a part in these three young men's roles, and I think you're exactly right. Look, the transfer portal opened on Monday. They opened on Monday. Alabama, if it makes it all the way to the national championship game, the portal will have closed, but you're going to get a 5-day kind of extension after the national championship game for the two teams that are playing in that game. All right, what do we know so far? We know so far that Tyler Buckner has opted to go in the portal to play lacrosse. We know that Ja'Cory Brooks has opted to go to the portal, and we know that Isaiah Hastings has opted to go to the transfer portal. We remember, let's see, Tyu Jones-Bell as well, but Tyu Jones-Bell wasn't really on the football team this past season, so hard to really count him as a big loss. So let's analyze. You've lost, I guess, three guys really so far in the first 4 or 5 days of the transfer portal. Obviously, a lot of these guys, Jalen, are going to wait because they want to get their Rose Bowl championship rings and whatever national championship rings if they're able to accomplish that goal. So you're going to see a lot of guys hanging around. But what do you think Alabama going to see is traditional 15 to 20 guys jump in the transfer portal like we've seen over the last 2 years?
Given the rate of what Bama's doing right now, we could possibly see it. We also got to take account how many of these guys are actually have a chance to go into the NFL. How many of these guys got a high work ethic and want to be able to compete every single year? Because when you're at Bama, you're going to compete for a national championship, but also you're going to have to compete for your job every single day. How many of them guys actually want that? Because now you got a choice. Say like, okay, I don't feel like competing for them. I want more security on that one. Yes, I know I can compete for it. Yes, I know I can win, but I don't want to have to go through that. When I don't have to, I'll go somewhere else. There are some guys of that mindset. Then you got those other guys say like, I'm not making as much. Let me test the waters, see where I can make more money on the NIL, because let's be honest, I might not make the NFL. So I'm just going to try to secure the bag as much as I can while I'm still in college. You got those guys, that mindset. Let me touch on the 4 guys. First, I'm going to start with Ja'Cory. It was bittersweet, and I've gotten to know Ja'Cory for as much time as I met him in person. I hate to see him go, but I completely understood. Injuries happen. We don't know the full details of it, but injuries do play a part. Because last 2 years,
shoulder injury really hampered him, right?
It knocked him out of the depth chart. Yeah, it knocked him out of the depth chart because we saw him early in the season, and then it started to fade down, and when the injury started piling up. But because we saw the emergence of Jermaine Burton taking over being wide receiver 1, Isaiah Bond, he's kept making plays. We kept seeing just other guys step up. Kobe Prentice, he was stepping up big. Amari Knoblack, CJ Dupree, Robbie Oots. The list just kept getting better. Heck, even Jalen Hale, and he was the one that scored a touchdown pass against Ole Miss. So when you take those things into factor, and you already know it's an unfair situation, injuries play a part in the game, and there's always going to be somebody competing for your job. And once you come back, you got to earn it back. So we kind of understood that. But when you look at Ja'Cory and the rate of his progress and where he was supposed to be, coming out as a 5-4-star guy, one of the best wide receivers in his class, coming alongside Ajayi Hall, JoJo Earl, Christian Leary, that was supposed to be the next group. And to see them all guys not on the team anymore, it hurts. It's sad. It's disappointing, but it's also life. And things like that happen. So I wish Ja'Cory nothing but the best. I'm gonna miss him. I really wish it would have worked out like the way it was supposed to, the way everybody had hoped. But he's making a business decision, and I wish him well. Hastings, we're just deep at D-line.
We never knew you.
We didn't know. Now, I'm sure he's talented. You get recruited by Bama, you got to have talent. So that's another guy making a business decision. With Tyu Jones-Bell, you're already in a stacked receiving core. And if a lot of Bama fans pay attention, during 8A, he splashed a little bit. He showed some signs of what he could be, but just not enough to where we didn't see enough of him, or coaches didn't see enough of him in practice where he could get that playing time, that real opportunity during the game. So, again, another guy making a business decision. Buckner, this one might not be as nice because we saw what happened in South Florida. Dude couldn't throw. He just couldn't throw. And it was bad. So Bama fans, a lot of them, we already gave up on them, and we wish him the best in life. But I'm a quote Primetime back when he was on NFL Network. Ain't nobody care. So wish him the best. Good luck to him. Appreciate what he's done. Maybe in the locker room, because we haven't heard no bad things about him in the locker room. Been a good teammate. Yada yada yada. We appreciate him on that one. Thank you for your time. But
Deuces to Tyler Butner. All right, what do you talking about the rest of this roster? Who are some of these guys that you think, Alabama needs to make sure they don't lose X or Y or Z? I mean, most of the focus is on the quarterbacks. Alabama needs to make sure they keep Ty Simpson. Alabama needs to make sure they keep Dylan Lonergan or Eli Holstein. Anybody can make any sort of decision that they want to in the next 4 weeks, and you've got a lot of time. And as you already alluded to, we're just guessing what these young men are thinking or feeling, and really the circumstances that they're dealing with. But we were talking to the press room kind of yesterday before Nate Oates got out there about who Alabama needs to keep and who might be leaving. And you hit on the already deep defensive line room. And I think that you've also got a pretty deep interior linebacking room. And I don't want you to lose Sean Murphy. I don't want you to lose Isaiah Jackson. Ian Jackson, excuse me. Ian Jackson. I don't want you to lose Kendrick Blackshire. You've got a lot of, obviously, if you come to Alabama, Jalen, you're not an idiot. If you come to Alabama, you're talented. You've got ability. So you don't want to lose anybody that's got real ability. But from your perspective, what do you think about some guys that, they may not have made heavy contributions in 2023, but you want to make sure they're still on the roster for 2024?
I'm gonna talk professional first, then I'm gonna do personal. Professionally, these guys are going to make their own decisions regardless of the situation.
Absolutely.
I feel like more of them might dip, especially if we win a national championship, because they might go because now you achieved team success. A lot of those guys are probably going to be looking for individual success to help out their stock. Completely understandable. Go back to business decisions. You want to try to keep the guys as much as you can, but we got to know how Nick Saban, how Coach Go Saban is going to think and how he's going to process everything. You got to take account that if some of the guys that's on the current roster, they go into the portal. Then you got some guys that's already in the portal. They might be coming to Tuscaloosa. Then you got to take account the recruits that you already have lined up that are coming in. You mentioned the quarterbacks. We got this kid, Julian Sayin. He's a 5-star guy. He's supposed to be coming in.
Friend of the program.
There's a strong possibility who's ever on the quarterback now might not be back. A la Ty Simpson, a la Lonergan. We don't want to see him go, but they got to make business decisions. So at the same time, especially the way that Milroe has constantly progressed and got better, and he's not eligible for the NFL draft, even though right now his stock wouldn't be high. He got to continue to get better at some things, but another year in college, another year under Tommy Rees, and another offseason to get his seasoning right, because I gave the analogy, Milroe's like a pack of ribs. When you last year, you just got the wrapper off. You didn't season him right. So he was just still raw. You had to wait a while. So this offseason, you got him seasoned right. You put him in the smoker. Got out, all right. A little bit there. Still need a little bit more barbecue sauce, and you got to let it marinate. I think next season is when the barbecue sauce get put on, and then you put it back in the smoker with the barbecue sauce on, and let that thing marinate and let that thing get on. But back to the players, there's a strong possibility that these guys, a lot of guys, are going to dip. Now here's the personal thing. For the love of God, I do not want to see Kendrick Blackshire go. I've gotten to know him. I consider him my Texas brother, because every time I talk to him, I always tell him, bro, I'm proud of you. You're doing your thing. And I knew what he's doing and what he's bringing to this team. It's only a matter of time. But I understand that, look, you look at the progression of Jahad Campbell, Deontay Lawson. You look at Justin Jefferson. He's still on the roster. There's a bunch of guys that are already on the team, and there's a bunch of guys that are potentially coming in. Caden Jones, 3-star, he's supposed to be projected to come in. Not to mention, who's to say there's going to be some more, Trez Marshall, he was a transfer. Good chance that he might come back. I'm not sure, like his eligibility situation, but we're gonna see. But personally, I don't want to see Blackshear go. I don't want to see a lot of these guys go. But I understand they're gonna make business decisions. So that's my professional opinion, and that's my personal opinion as well.
Well, I think we're both in agreement that, well, when a guy comes and signs at Alabama, I just want the best for him. And so when they're here, they pull for him. When they move on, you pull for them, and you want the best for everybody because it's a hard time. 18 to 22, it's a hard time. A lot of challenging, a lot of big decisions that these guys are going to have to make. Let's talk about Saturday real quick. Jalen, so you already hit on Jalen Milroe just a little bit. We're talking to Jalen Prince. You can follow him at the Prince Boy 52 on Twitter/X. So you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You need to check out Jalen's podcast, Two Dudes with Sports News, on the same podcast platforms. Look, tomorrow is the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and we watched
And the Army and Navy game.
And Army Navy. Yes, you're right. You're right. And Army Navy. Tomorrow's Heisman Trophy ceremony. You got Jaden Daniels. You got Jaden Daniels. You got Bo Nix. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Penix as your finalists. A lot of people in this area were hoping or thinking that maybe Jalen Milroe could be a dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, 6 touchdowns against Kentucky. You have 4th and 31. You have a great performance against LSU. Kind of an underwhelming performance in the SEC championship game, but still 2 touchdowns, almost 200 yards passing against Georgia. Basically bounced back from the Texas USF 2 weeks of turmoil into being a pretty good quarterback. Let me get your thoughts on the Jalen Milroe Heisman Trophy snub. If you want to call it a snub, you can disagree with that or not. And, I'm voting for Jaden Daniels. Who are you voting for, and who actually wins it on Saturday?
The guy that I'm voting, the guy that I would vote for is the guy that's going to win it, and that's Jaden Daniels. You look at the year that he's had. He had a 600-yard game against the Gators. I know it's Florida. We understand that. But 600 yards total nonetheless. He showed up in almost every game. He's had some losses. But given that the Heisman Trophy is an individual award,
none of those losses were really on him.
A lot of them wasn't for the lack of him. He just didn't have a defense this year. But overall, I think it's going to be him, given some of the memorable performances that he's had. So I think it's going to be Daniels. Milroe's point of making the Heisman. Personally, I felt like he should have got invited. We knew he wasn't going to win it, but he should have got invited. But they got to take 4 guys, and those have been the 4 most consistent guys in Daniels, Harrison Jr., Penix Jr., and Nix. If you could have had 5 or more, I think Milroe would have been the 5th guy that you would have brought in, based off of what he's done since the South Florida game, and also the moments and the clutch moments that he's had since we ran the table in the rest of the regular season. But you look at the stats. I mean, 2,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, QBR of 83.6. He's been a much improved, by far the most improved guy on this Bama team. And a lot of people, again, he even mentioned this, a lot of people did not believe in him, but he never stopped believing in himself. His supporting cast never stopped believing in himself. So the story of it, statistic-wise, won't get him there. But the story and the moments and the narrative, it could get him there. And it should have got him there, but it is what it is. You're going to go based off the start of the season. You can't knock the decisions that you already made. I think he's going to be a favorite going into next season because his story is still going to follow him going into next season. So I'm excited about it. But again, I got Daniels winning tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know how many Alabama fans will be paying attention to it without any Alabama representation. I'm with you. I think that Jaden Daniels should win it, but I think that they're going to give it to Michael Penix. I think they're going to go the easy route, undefeated quarterback on an a dynamic quarterback on an undefeated team in the playoffs. And Penix is fine. He's had a good year. I mean, he's had a real good year. But goodness gracious, for all the things that you already outlined about Jaden Daniels was frankly unstoppable from a quarterback position. And yes, a lot of it was due to having great skill position players around him and utilizing them nicely. But look, if Daniels doesn't get knocked out of that of the Alabama game, and people can debate that or not all they want, but if he stays in the Alabama game, we are in a game all the way to the last possession of that ball game.
I think I remember before he got hurt, he did throw that pick.
Yeah, he threw the pick. They were down 14 at that point, right? They were already down 14. I think they would have kept cutting it to the one score, much like the 19 LSU Alabama game, where Alabama kept cutting it to one score, but could never get over the top. I think it would kind of been the same way, but flip-flopped. Alabama, he would have kept cutting it to one score, Milroe answer, and you might have caught it on the 10-point wherever the clock lined up. But I do think you would have had a more dramatic last 9-10 minutes or so. So Daniels, I hope he wins. I don't think he will. I think they're going to give it to Michael Penix. Let's move into your thoughts from last week. Alabama upsets Georgia. We're going to do three things. We're going to go Alabama over Georgia. We're going to go college football playoff thoughts, and then we'll round it out with Alabama and Purdue tomorrow up there in Canada. How about that? So Alabama beats Georgia in Mercedes-Benz Stadium over there in Atlanta to stay undefeated in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What did you think? I mean, a lot of my friends were at least, Alabama has no chance. Alabama stinks. Alabama needed a miracle against Auburn. Blah, 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 blah. And then obviously to watch that game on Saturday and see it unfold. What did you make of the Crimson Tide's basically return to the top of the SEC?
Not surprised, because we're Alabama. It's as simple as that. Understand this. I give Georgia a ton of credit. I'm from Georgia. I'm from Meta, Georgia, 912 area code, hour away from Savannah. I'm deep in dog country. Well, Georgia Southern land, but it's still dogs country nonetheless. I'm deep in there. I've told a bunch of people that are big Georgia fans, we're going to beat you. It's as simple as that. Because we got the GOAT. You got the prodigy of the GOAT. Now, the prodigy beat you in the national championship. The only thing about it, 2 guys were missing that killed you the last time we faced you when we were fully healthy. But we still give them the championship nonetheless. We were going to beat him because we had him. We were going to make the necessary adjustments. We found our identity, and this was the most important reason why. We got Kevin Steele, not Pete Golden. And that's no slight shot or disrespect to Pete Golden, because I think he's an exceptional coach, a tremendous recruiter. But Kevin Steele has been tremendous with this defense this season over what Pete Golden did for us last season. And that is fact. When I look at the way we adjusted, when I look at the way that we play, we follow our identity. Jalen Hurts, he wasn't spectacular, but he was tremendous because he got the job done and he didn't make the mistake. Could he have thrown better? Yes. Could he make better plays? Of course you can. You can always go back and look at the film, figure out ways to get better. But we were able to run the ball effectively. Georgia was not the same team that they've been the last 2 seasons. They don't have a Carter. They ain't got a Davis. They ain't got a Walker. They ain't got a Dean. They ain't got a Tyndall. They don't have none of that. Not to mention, I knew we could attack their secondary because, I look at the cornerbacks, none of them impressed me. None of them impressed me. But more so than not, our talent matches up to Georgia. So a lot of people can look at the records. You can look at who they face. You can look at how Georgia has beaten a lot of people. And you could judge Georgia's schedule and say, they really haven't played anybody. I'm not worried about what they do because I know that we're Alabama. We have Nick Saban, and we're going to beat them because that's what we do. It's Bryant-Denny East. We beat them in Atlanta 9 times out of 10. You scratch that 10 times out of 10. And I know because Georgia has not been tested like that this year, and because it is Bama, we got that A on our chest. The pressure starts to mount with the dogs. So the fact that we did what we did last Saturday for the championship, I'm not surprised. I called it.
Well, I was pretty, you watch the Georgia film, throughout the year, and you kind of could see some areas where Alabama could attack them, especially on the edges of their defense. You hit on their defense not being as full of the dogs, or as far as, well, excuse my pun, as full of really the dudes that they had the last 2 years. You hit on the schedule. I don't look. Georgia, when you went back through their tape and you went back through the game, you can do that right there on BamaCentral.com. Look at 22 things I noticed in Alabama's 27-24 victory, sitting right there on BamaCentral.com. I spent a lot of time writing that up. Georgia really was not very creative. Offensively, and really kind of didn't really have a whole lot of answers defensively. And really, people thought, "Oh, Joe, if y'all play that game again, you're going to lose." I think that Alabama, until Georgia develops, unless Georgia develops more in their offensive playbook and gets a little more creative defensively speaking, or develop somebody defensively speaking, you play that game 10 times. I think Alabama wins at 8 of those 10 times. You got to give Georgia respect for being very talented. So I give them, I guess, those 2, maybe even 3 times. But I think Alabama wins 7 or 8 out of 10 against Georgia. I do think, Jalen, though, that the schedule for Georgia really hindered them this year, because they never really did have to develop further parts of their playbook, because it was basically Brock Bowers and we will out physical you on the offensive side of the ball. When they went up against a defense that could match Brock Bowers, that could match the physicality, they didn't really have a whole lot of answers.
They didn't have a lot of answers, and they kind of did at the same time, because they were still able to cut it to 3. They did it when they found their stride a little bit late. The thing that really I took away was we were dominant at the trenches. Let's go back to the beginning of the season. The offense, I'm going to start with the offensive line. So the offensive line started with Caden Proctor, Booker, McLaughlin, Dalcourt, Latham. It was going to take time for the chemistry to start. Then you had injuries with Booker going back and forth. So you either have Booker, you had Ferguson. Then Seth was staying at center, but he had snap issues with Milroe. Then you had the right guard situation, we wasn't getting a whole lot of push. Then you inserted Jaden Roberts, and then Booker got healthy, and Caden Proctor. And I credit the coaching for the development, and also the players on this team, the leaders on this team. Proctor grew up. He's not a freshman anymore, because let's go to that LSU game. He blocked 3 guys, and I talked to him like a couple of days ago. I said, like, did you really block 3 guys? He said he saw him when he pulled. Mind you, he's a left tackle that's 6'6", and he's pulling like that. We saw it in the SEC championship. They pulled him again. Reese's ability to learn his players, learn his quarterback, and thinking, okay, they can do this. I'm gonna put them in positions to do to be able to exploit that, milk that. I'm not going to put them in a position where they're going to fail. But the development of the offensive line and the steadiness and the consistency that they've been able to build a chemistry, and even in blowout games, you still kept that same offensive line there to continue to get better. You look at Proctor in his development, Booker and Latham in their leadership, along with McLaughlin, and the immediate impact of Jaden Roberts bringing that inside nastiness with his strength. It open everything up for how this offense has been able to play going forward. Now let's shift over to defensive line. Tim Keene has been the second most improved player on this team, and been one of the biggest surprises. The kid out of Ramsey, he's been tremendous. Run stuffing and putting some pressure on the quarterback. Jaheim Otis continues to improve. DT and CB, Dallas Turner and Chris Basborough, they're the best pass rushing duo in the league. I don't know what Tennessee thought. I don't know what A&M thought when they said they had a better pass rush than that. No, I trust DT and I trust CB. That was already given. But the fact that we're back to be able to neutralize the run, both from the inside, that opened up for the linebackers. We had some injury issues. Of course, Deontay, he missed some time. Trez Marshall, he missed some time. But I think the biggest thing this offseason was to be able to build up depth with the inside linebacker, with Blackshear, Campbell, or whoever you want to name in there, to be able to step in and make impact plays. That front seven has been tremendous. That was the key for us to win because Trez Marshall, he played with an edge. Deontay Lawson, he was rusty in the Iron Bowl. He shook that rust right off in the SEC championship because you saw him get tackled for loss on Kendall Milton. And mind you, Milton was dominating throughout the entire season. So when you look at all of our front sevens, you look at our fronts, the game was won in the trenches. We had complete control of that game. Now, Georgia, they had some tackle for losses. They had 3 sacks. But at the end of the day, Georgia found out Bama had a better front on both sides of the ball.
A better front. I'm glad you gave a lot of credit to Tommy Rees right there. I think Tommy Rees over the last 6 weeks has really been calling great games and putting his players in great positions. I think you alluded to it a little earlier with kind of learning Jalen Milroe and his skill sets and what he might be able to be in 2024. So Alabama wins on Saturday and beats Georgia, and boom, Sunday comes. Alabama is chosen number 4 in the college football playoff to match up with Michigan. You got Michigan, Alabama, Texas, and Washington is in. Everyone's crying over Florida State. Let's get the Jalen Prince commentary on the college football playoff field.
All right, time to play the villain part because I've learned to embrace it. I'm a huge WWE fan. I've been a fan for a long time. As a kid, I loved the heroes. I loved the baby faces. The older I got, I started to understand the heels, the villains of it. And like the older I got, I started embracing it. The whole world, college football world, tired of Bama. They want to see them lose. A lot of teams root against them. So they want us to be the villain. Let's play the villain role. I knew we was going to get into the playoffs. All we had to do was beat Bama.
Looks like Jalen might have hit a button or two on his phone. We'll get him right back in here. But yes, the SEC champion was always going to be in the college football playoff. That's why I think that a lot of this Florida State consternation against Alabama is misplaced. Alabama, if they were going to beat Georgia, they were going to get in the playoff. That slot was already carved out. Number 1 or number 4, either going to be for Georgia or for Alabama. And so when Alabama won, they put them 4. They bumped everybody up, Michigan and Washington to 1 and to number 2. And then Texas, because Texas beat Alabama and won the conference championship. Boom, you get in at number 3. I think Florida State's biggest argument and biggest problem is with Texas winning the Big 12 win-loss team. Your 1 loss is to 2-loss Oklahoma. Look, Alabama's resume defeating the teams that Alabama was going to defeat: LSU, defeating Georgia, defeating Ole Miss, beating Texas A&M, getting in the SEC. You were never going to leave the SEC champion out of the college football playoff. And so I think that Jalen is right on. Embrace the villain. From the Alabama perspective, if everybody's going to complain about Alabama getting in, well, just watch Alabama go on and win the whole dang thing, because I think this is the underdog position where Nick Saban and the Crimson Tide really thrive. You saw Alabama in 2017 get into the playoff after losing the Iron Bowl and ended up taking care of business as the number 4 seed, beating Georgia on the 2nd and 26. So really a lot of themes crossing over, a lot of history crossing over with the 2023 team getting into the college football playoff as the number 4 seed. So yeah, I'm really happy that Alabama got in. I'm not really upset for Florida State. I mean, yeah, those guys, you go 13-0. You did earn Florida State did earn a place in the playoff. There was just as Brian Kelly has said. As Brian Kelly has said earlier in one of his press availabilities this week, there was only 4 spots for 5 teams, for 5 conferences. And so obviously somebody was going to get left out. And I'm sorry, Florida State, it was just you. Florida State just, you saw the backup quarterback position. You saw the Johnny come lately as Mike Norvell in his second real season there with Florida State. I think second or third season with Florida State. And then the committee said, oh, oh, we can put Texas and Alabama and Michigan in the playoff, 3 blue blood programs, and Washington to honor the Pac-12 in their final season. Washington, who's beaten our darling Oregon twice, and blue blood USC. We can get big money. Or we can get big money Michigan, big money Texas, and big money Alabama into the playoff, and they all deserve it. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, then we're gonna put them in over Florida State, and we'll see what ends up happening. Jalen, I see him; he's getting back into the backstage. We'll see. There we go. Jalen must have walked back into the house. Don't worry, brother. I feel it for you. Talking about the college football playoff decision, we had off at playing the villain, and Alabama / the SEC champion was always going to get into the field.
Man, okay, so I cut off when my phone overheated because it was in front of the sun. So that was kind of like God saying, like, boy, you better humble yourself. But yeah, I got to decide. Go along with the villain role. Like in WWE, there's a hero, there's a villain. Everybody that plays against Bama is basically going to be seen as a hero to the public eye. We embrace the villain role. They want us to lose, we're not gonna do it. They want somebody new, you're not gonna get it. When I look at what we did and I look at the college football playoff, we got in, of course, because we were healthy. We beat the number 1 team, and Florida State, they didn't look the same after Jordan Travis got hurt. And that's not an insult, that's just a fact of life. So when you take account that we were the better option for a more entertaining, for a more better product to be on that field, because that's what the committee was going to do. That was what they wanted after the past 2 seasons of putting in the quote unquote well-deserving team in the college football playoff. In the game of the product wasn't what they wanted, what it was not panned out. Because I remember last year, I give TCU credit. They had their quarterback, Max Duggan. He beat Michigan. They showed up. But when they got that national championship game against an SEC school, a more physical team, a more talented team, it did not pan well. And I still remember where I was at. I was at Legacy Arena for Monday Night Raw instead of watching the national championship game. And it just wasn't great. And I knew I made the right decision. So going back to Sunday, Selection Sunday, the committee did the right thing for business. That was a business move. For all my wrestling fans out there, if you remember the time when Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, they were deemed a group called The Authority, and Daniel Bryan was on the verge of beating John Cena for the WWE Championship, and Randy Orton had the Money in the Bank contract, and he cashed it in on Daniel Bryan at that SummerSlam and to win the WWE Championship from Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan at that state was Florida State without Jordan Travis. The underdog, nobody believed in them, and the committee did not want a bad product to be able to run what they want to do. So while Triple H was the special guest referee for that match, the committee came in. Florida State won their ACC championship, thinking that they're going to the college football playoff. Can't turn it right around, and they got pedigreed by the committee. Insert Randy Orton, Alabama, cash in. Now we're in the playoffs, and the committee got what they wanted.
That's what I was trying to sort of say, is that when you can choose Michigan, Texas, and Alabama, and then you get to honor the Pac-12 in their last season with Washington, who beat Oregon twice and beat USC. You get to choose 3 blue bloods in college football, and you get to choose, a dying conference as well. I think it's a no-brainer decision. Now, is it unfortunate for Florida State? Of course it's unfortunate. But as Brian Kelly put out in his Monday press conference, you only had 4 spots. 4 spots for 5 teams. We knew that there were only going to be 4 spots in 2014. In 2014, when we signed up, there was always going to be a team, always going to be a school, a conference left out. For many, many years, it was the Pac-12 being left out. The ACC was represented
because they weren't that good.
Florida State, a couple of times by Clemson. They've been in there before. And look, the SEC's never been left out. But when are you going to leave out the best college football conference? And you get people saying, "Oh, well, yeah, SEC was down this year. SEC was down this year." Well,
the SEC is run by 2.5 teams, Alabama and Georgia. The half is LSU, because every 4, 3, 5 years, you're going to get a really good LSU team that's going to compete for a national championship. But that's every 4 or 5 years. It ain't consistently. The most consistent, the SEC is ran by Bama and Georgia. Everybody else is trying to figure out their way. Now you got Texas, Oklahoma coming in next year. That's going to be a different story with the whole realignment. I want to go back to just had a whole playoff setup. You couldn't put Bama in without putting in Texas. So Texas had a gateway. One, they dominated the conference championship, and I mean dominated. Sark is coaching out of his mind. He put up another masterpiece. And the last thing you want to face is a hot Texas group that got Bama-like elite level talent on your squad, and you got Steve Sarkisian. He's your play caller and your designer. So you couldn't, like, the committee knew we had to put Texas in there because they was going to put on a show. But you couldn't put Texas in without putting in Bama because they did beat us in week 2, and that game mattered. So it was a no-brainer. I knew it was going to be Michigan, Washington. You had to put Texas at 3 because the way they dominated their game, and then you put in Bama. And we got the realignment. The only thing I would change about it, don't put Michigan and Washington in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. Please don't. And they did it. And got to take it with a grain of salt because I felt like it would have worked better if you had Bama and Michigan in New Orleans rather than have them in Pasadena, and then you got Washington and Texas in New Orleans, and Washington is more closer to California than it is in New Orleans.
Well, that's the right of the number 1 seed. The number 1 seed gets to choose. The number 1 seed gets to choose. So Michigan chose the Rose Bowl because of the Big Ten's affiliation with the Rose Bowl.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, so the Big Ten has a big old ties to the Rose Bowl. The number 1 seed gets to choose their destination, and they chose the Rose Bowl, leaving Washington and Texas with the Sugar Bowl.
I get that. But is it but for Florida State, you do feel bad for them, but that's the point. Like, that's life. Things happen like that where it's out of your control. Travis got hurt, and the difference between Florida State and the 2014 Ohio State team, when they lost both their quarterbacks, their production never stopped. They picked up the leftovers, and they were still able to make a 4 or 5 course meal out of it. When Florida State lost Travis, the lead chef, it went from being a 5-star restaurant to one of the worst restaurants that you see on a Gordon Ramsay kitchen, like Hell's Kitchen show. It was that bad. 55 yards in a championship game. The defense is 5-star without question. Their championship group, but defense cannot carry you to no championship like it's done in years past, based on how the rules are set up, and the rules favor offense. So your defense can be great, but you got to be able to put up points. Florida State could not put up enough points to be able to compete with the likes of Bama, Michigan, Washington, definitely not Washington, Texas, and Georgia. But Georgia had to get left out. And I feel like the only reason why they were at 6, because the selection show had to put on a little bit of suspense. They had to play the TV role. Either it's going to be Bama or it's going to be Florida State. They did it, and it had a tremendous outroar. So the ratings went crazy. The streamers went was going crazy. ESPN did a good job for business. The NCAA did a great job for business. Morality and integrity, throw that out the window because that's never been the NCAA. And the fact that people are outraged, half of it's fake because Bama got in, not FSU.
Last thing for us, Jalen, and we've been talking to Jalen Prince all afternoon long right here on the Joe Gaither Show. We appreciate everybody watching us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. You can follow Jalen Prince at the Prince Boy 52 on X/Twitter machine. Follow his podcast, The Two Dudes with Sports News, right there on all the podcast platforms as well. Last thing for us. Look, Alabama basketball started off so hot, 4 big old wins, and then reality kind of set in, losing 2 out of 3 with Ohio State and Clemson in the last week. Yeah, Alabama beats Arkansas State on Monday. Not really anything to take away from, not really anything to hang your hats on, given the quality of competition that Arkansas State is. No disrespect to Coach Hodgson, but Alabama has its sights set a bit higher than Arkansas State. So tomorrow, Saturday, 12:30, up there in Canada, was supposed to be the Bediako and Edey Classic. Bediako now with San Antonio's G League affiliate, so not going to be a part of the game for Alabama. is there any way that the Crimson Tide can take down the Purdue Boilermakers and get us feeling a little bit better about the Crimson Tide's basketball team?
The quote Nate Oates, and I've covered. I've been one of the leading cover guys for Alabama basketball for Tide 100.9 this year. From everything that Nate Oates has pointed out, it's going to be defense. We understand it's going to be a tough challenge because this team is height deprived. They don't have a 7-footer in Charles Bedianco. They don't have a 6'11" with a 7 or with over a 7'5" wingspan in Noah Clowney. They don't have that level of length that we had in last season. So it's going to be a challenge. You got to count on Nick Pringle. He's supposed to be coming back. You got to count on Jaron Stevenson. Yes, he is 6'10" or 6'11". I think they list him at 6'10". I think he got a 7'3" wingspan, if I'm correct. But when you look at the length that we do have, and not to mention the question of Grant Nelson potentially trying to play, I knew they flew him on a plane. He did travel with the team to Canada. But when you take those things into an account, it's going to be a challenge. There is a way for Bama to beat Purdue. You got to make shots, and you have to make good shots, but it's going to take a defensive unit. Literally, you ever heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child?
Of course.
It's going to take a village to guard Edey. You have to play sound, disciplined basketball. You have to gang rebound. Like when that ball jumps in the air and you see a big elephant about to go up and get the rebound, you got to be like a pack of lions and hyenas try to jump that elephant and get that food from the elephant. So that's going to be, pun intended, because this one time where Crimson Tide are not going to be the elephants, it's going to be that big dude for the Boilermakers. So they just got to find a way. You got to try to play great defense. Got to have one of your best defensive performances of this game. But Bama, they got a tough stretch. You got Purdue this game. You got Creighton coming up. They're ranked number 10. And then you got the number 1 team in the nation in Arizona going against former Alabama Crimson Tide
Jalen Bradley.
Jalen Bradley. I forgot. Sorry about that, JB. But yeah, it's going to be a tough stretch. But I think this is an important stretch for Alabama right now because you lost to Clemson at home. Questionable crowd, by the way. Questionable crowd again on last Monday. But
all right, well, put that with it. Let's hash that out because I had a lot of messages about that. What's the best way to get people's butts in the seats?
When it comes to Bama fans, because they're a reactive crowd, not a proactive crowd.
Right.
Nate Oates got two things. I would say Nate Oates has got to call out the fans like Coach Nick Saban did. The other factor into it, and I think this might be a little bit uncontrollable. They got to be entertaining. Because let's go back to last season.
Are they not playing entertaining basketball? They're
to a degree, they are. But when you look at just, I gotta feel like Bama fans are not dumb. They you could get a feel from them. Like they know that this team is different, and we lack a lot of height, and we're just not playing as dominant as we did last year. So when you got that going on, and this team does shoot a lot of threes, and we make a lot of them, but we're not playing great defense, and we're not protecting the rim as much, and that's getting the sense of this is going to be a tough year because when you look at everybody else in the conference, and this is going to be one of the best basketball seasons in the SEC as a whole, when you take account Tennessee, the pork chops of Arkansas, A&M still going to be tough with Wade Taylor and them boys. And the list goes on and on. So I think the only way you're going to get the fans in there is also you got to take account competition because not a lot of people believe Clemson is a strong opponent. Like if it was the ACC Challenge, imagine North Carolina was coming in there. You was going to get I feel like you was going to get a good
problem, Jalen. That's the problem. Alabama fans. They're not Alabama fans. They are fans of good basketball. Do they love the program? Love Coach Oates? Do they support the team?
They do love Coach Oates. Yes, I do.
Because here's the deal. Oh, we don't want to go because it's Clemson. We don't want to go because it's Monday night against Arkansas.
That's kind of what it's been.
We don't want to go because it's Indiana State. That's BS to me. Because
it is, but it's also fact.
If it was UTC in Bryant-Denny Stadium, if it was Mercer in Bryant-Denny Stadium, in Kent State in Bryant-Denny Stadium, you're still going to get your 80 to 85, you're still selling 100% tickets, but you're going to get 85% butts in the seats for those bad opponents because we just love Alabama football. We love Nick Saban. We love whoever the quarterback is this year. It doesn't matter. Where is the same level of support for the Alabama basketball program? I know Arkansas State, bad team, but you got former assistant coming into town. It's Monday night where there's nothing going on. You've already celebrated kind of a Gump weekend with a big SEC championship win. You got the tickets were dirt cheap. I know the concessions are out of control in Coleman Coliseum, but the tickets to get in were dirt cheap. So, what is it? You got to get past I'll go when they play Kentucky. I'll go when they play the Baylors of the world, the Houstons of the world, like we've seen the last couple of years. You got 16 home games a year. You either support the program or not.
It's kind of a tough and tricky subject because, I learned a long time ago. This is one of the best sayings that you could ever learn. You can't tell a millionaire and a billionaire how to spend their money. So when you take account all them donors that have those season tickets, you think about all the people that are trying to show that do show up. Even when they show up, they're not really proactive into the game. They're reactive. They're waiting for Bama to be able to do something. Also, there needs to be another conversation about how the student section should be running Coleman, at least until a new arena is built. And jury's still out on that one, but I don't know all the details. But going along with this season, I think the only thing, the one thing that is controllable to be able to get more fans into the games is going to be Coach Nate Oates and and the players to be able to get call them out. The same thing that Coach Nick Saban did at Baumhauer's is going to have to be the same thing that Nate Oates is going to have to do for Bama Nation to be able to get Coleman packed the way it was last year. But the uncontrollable part is going to be team you got to be playing really good basketball at some point, and you got to have those big wins. Because let's go back to last season. Not only did you have Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, and so much depth, and you were a fun team to watch, you had the big wins. You beat North Carolina, you beat Houston. They were both ranked number 1. You had those big wins, so you had more Bama Nation looking forward to seeing how this team played, even when they packed out games against weak opponents. So
why can that not carry over from year to year to year? Because you get people, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. But you got people in my mention saying, oh, it's a Monday night tip at 7:00. It's too late. Oh, it's a Tuesday night tip at 6:00. It's too late. Oh, Wednesday night tip at 6:00. It's too early. They throw tip times out. They throw opponents out. They throw, we don't know if this team's any good. Look, Alabama football,
you're still packing out either way, even in the morning game.
Number 1.
And we hate morning games.
Right. It's 11 a.m. Alabama fans, plan for the football games.
Yeah.
It's 11 a.m. game. We're going to adjust our entire life, our entire clock around the 11 a.m. game to be there. And great on them. I don't want to take any butt out of Bryant-Denny Stadium. I know. But why can you not have the same planning for Alabama basketball? Well, it's Monday night at 8:00. I know we usually watch the news at 8:00.
And we're on national TV.
Right, exactly. Where is the planning for this program for, you're playing on Monday at 7:00 in Coleman Coliseum. I know it's the Christmas parade downtown, but we're going to go to the basketball game because that's what we look like. People say, oh, bad scheduling. People say, oh, bad timing. And then my response is, well, you just don't like basketball. You just don't like Alabama basketball. And that's fine if that's the answer, but make that be the answer. Don't hide behind the excuse of, it's a 7:00 tip against Arkansas State. I don't want to go. Just say you don't like the team. Just say you don't like the team. That's fine.
People don't like telling the truth. I do. Well, we got to do it professionally, but people don't like telling the truth because they want to protect the feelings. I'm about 50-50 with it. If it hurts your feelings, that's your problem, not mine. But this is one of the uncontrollable things about it. They want to watch good basketball, and a lot of these fans are going to speculate what this team is going to be like this season. So it is going to depend on the opponent and the scheduling on that one, because they're gonna make those. Like I thought it was a scheduling against Clemson, because like when people say it was an 8 o'clock game, it's still national TV. Like you still got to show up for that. And that's why I was not against when Jay Williams called us.
It's a big time event. ACC,
and when Jay Williams called us out like that, I knew something was wrong. So it's gonna be on the team, and I'm still gonna put it on Nate Oates to be able to like call them out and get fans more into it. And if they're not gonna get into it, I'm hoping, and I was really hoping that AD Greg Byrne will like shift up the student section in Coleman at least for one game. Shift it around for one game, do an experiment on that one time. Like just see how it goes. Like move that student section. It still got those seats, but move them around like the goal, move behind the basketball goal near the visitor sides. Like let some of them students get some of that. Let them get some of that and see how we can get, because the environment's got to go. Because I promise you, and I've talked to a lot of people part of the Crimson Chaos. They've been complaining about the seating issues and just the crowd not getting into it consistently for a long time.
For ages, yeah, absolutely. Well, Jalen, this has been a blast, man. I really appreciate you hanging out with us for this hour right here on the Friday edition of the Joe Gaither Show. We've talked college football playoff. We've talked Alabama and Georgia SEC championship. We've talked transfer portal. We've talked all kinds of things. Heisman Trophy, Alabama basketball, all kinds of things. I'll leave the last little bit up to you, man. Anything that you want to get off your chest, and tell the people where they can follow you at the Prince Boy 52 on the X/Twitter machine, and Two Dudes with Sports News. Tell everybody all about your work and anything else that you've got on your mind today as we get out of here on a Friday.
Two things. First on my podcast, Two Dudes with Sports News. That's with my co-host Garrett Goldman. We do show once a week. You can find us on Spotify or anywhere else that you can get your podcast. We're talking sports. We'll talk food. We'll talk sports politics. That's the only politics you're gonna get from us. We keep it blunt. We keep it nice. We keep it sweet. We keep it blunt. We try not to cuss because my mom is always listening, and I know I'm gonna hear from it. So that's one. The last thing I want to get off my chest is this: with the expansion coming in, the college football playoffs next year, and right now the college football world is at an uproar saying the regular season don't matter. I don't necessarily believe that's true. Here's what I hope for. This is my idea. This is what I hope going into next year. This is going to be a little bit like the March Madness in the NCAA tournament. You know how like teams, college basketball teams, try to schedule really good teams to help out the strength of schedule, and you want to be able to beat solid good teams to help out your resume to get into March Madness. I'm hoping that this helps out for the P5 and the G5. A lot of people say like, oh, imagine if Liberty would have had a chance like to be able to get into the playoff. Technically, they would if they would have had the 12 teams playoff, because they went undefeated. They won a conference championship. Florida State would have got in this year. Liberty could have had a chance if they would have debated hard. Here's what I know. Here's what I feel. The committee is going to care about that top 4 because they're going to think business. The rest of the 8 spots, I feel like they should give a crap about. Whatever record shows, whatever win, who got the best resume off the scheduling, you put them in. This is what's going to lead to Power 5 conferences, teams in the Power 5, teams in the Group 5, to schedule better opponents. I'm hoping that the expansion will influence athletic directors and coaches to schedule more competitive opponents instead of cupcake-like schools. We understand the FCS, they use those games to be able to boost up money, and it's just a free butt whooping. I understand that. It's good for their business, but not for the entertainment product of it. And most of them, they use it as to be able to get a free win. I'm hoping with the expansion, it'll influence teams to do away with that, boost up, play competitive teams. Heck, if a P5 got to play a Group 5 and a Group 5 is really good and they can possibly beat you, you got to deal with that on the field. Because now I'm hoping that more Group 5s get an opportunity to get into the playoffs and let's see what they got, because it's expanded. It's not going to be 4, it's going to be 12. So I'm hoping that the expansion can influence more teams to be able to schedule better opponents. Last thing I will end with this. If a P5 or G5 want to schedule an FCS or schedule more than one cupcake school, here's what they should do. The first one you can host at home. But if you got another cupcake schedule, another FCS opponent, you got to go to them. You know how Bama went to South Florida? You got to do that. So if Georgia want to play, so if LSU wants to play Southern again, you got to go to Southern. because that's really gonna help them out financially. When you got an LSU squad going to Southern and going to Southern University, it'll help out their revenue. It'll help out merchandise sales. It'll be good for local businesses. Imagine Mississippi State going to Jackson State. You can handle it. It'll be all right. So, and it'll make them watch out and be careful about scheduling more than one quote-unquote cupcake schedule. That's what I hope with the expansion.
Jalen, I love that idea. Actually, I think that's a really innovative and strong idea because you get a huge gate to the local hometowns, and people, the athletic directors on the top side are like weary of giving up a home game. I think that's a great idea. I love that, actually.
Think about this. You think a rich donor want to go to an FCS school?
No.
That's what's gonna get. That will get them.
That's good. That's fun. That's a good idea. We'll get out of here on that note. Follow Jalen Prince at the Prince Boy 52. Follow his podcast, The Two Dudes with Sports News, putting out weekly episodes on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, wherever that you get your podcast platforms. Jalen, I hope you have a great day, man. Thanks so much for your time today.
Appreciate you. Peace.
Yes, sir. That's Jalen Prince joining us today. It's sports journalist at a Tide 100.9, and covering all kinds of high school events. Look, that's going to do it for us today. We're going to get ready for another Friday night. Look, Friday night, it's going to be the last Friday football game of the year for me. We'll see Saraland and Clay Chalkville this evening and Bryant-Denny Stadium to close down the AHSAA season. We'll see what happens with Ryan Williams and Jalen Mbakwe. You can follow that at BamaCentral.com. We're going to get out of here for the day. We'll be back next week with we'll get started on some bowl week prep next week on the program. We'll look forward to Michigan a little bit next week. You can keep up with us at Joe Gaither 6 on the social media machines for all the coverage. Follow us at BamaCentral, on X, at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated. Really, we appreciate you following us anywhere right there at BamaCentral.com for all of your Alabama Crimson Tide news. I'm going to get out of here for the day, but we've had a lot of fun this week. Tell everybody about the program. Share the show with somebody. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. Watch us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter right there at Joe Gaither 6 and at BamaCentral and at BamaCentral.com.